Okay, we're back. We are COMP308 in the winter 2019 semester at Centennial Emerging Technologies. We're week 8, part 3 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about adding Angular to an Express app, but now we want to take that Angular front end and connect it to the Express backend, and that's what we're going to do in this video. All right, so yes, we've connected. Let's just make sure our server is working. I'm just going to put, yeah, this is still going. So what we have is we have no data right now. We want to connect to the data, but there are some issues. This is going to take the remainder of the time. All I want to do is make it so that the page that we're going to see can display the data. So we need the following things. We need a service to connect to the API. The API is the Express backend. Remember, it just gave us JSON data. So if I go back to that, and if I go to the backend, and if I just type in, this is the funny part, API/contact list, I get this, right? Because this is a known route. It's a known route by the server. If it's an unknown route, it's going to go to index.html. But if it's a known route, it's going to give us this. So this is the protection, right? So I've got this, and I've got to do something with it. I've got to take this and parse it and include it inside of the page. I want to show this stuff on our contact list page, but we don't have a contact list page yet. And we don't have a contact list route yet. And we don't have a way of getting data yet. And we don't have a model for our contact yet. These are all the things we need to do and other things. So I know it sounds like it's a mountain, but once we set this up, once we set up our structure, then it becomes more transparent what we have to do. Right now, it's kind of muddy. You don't know what you need to do. And we haven't even done, we're not even talking about authorization or authentication. That's next week, right? I would love to do everything this week, guys, but I cannot. There's just no time. You can see it. I mean, it's just crazy, right? All right, so let's get back to this now without so many complaints. So we don't need the back end. Let me just close all this off, and I'm going to go into source. And if you notice, I have my pages, my about page, my contact page, my page not found. And what I want to do is I want to create a service. And the services are different than components in that they can be injected into components. So I have my service, and the service does something for us. It's a behavior. We're also going to be using something called the observer pattern. We talked about the observer pattern a couple weeks ago. What the observer pattern does is it looks at, it watches for changes in a particular object. And what it does is it refreshes or gives us the information that we want. All right, this is cool. So I want to set up my first service. And I'm going to use the Angular CLI to do that again because it's nice. It makes my job a little easier, and it also reduces errors. This is the two reasons why I want to do this. So I want to put something in place called the contact list service. All right. So again, I'm going to bring this up. I'm inside of client, right? And inside of my client, I'm going to use ng generate service, right? I want a service now, not a component, right? And if you think about it, it's like this, nggs, ng generate service. Where is it? Services. What's it called? Contact list. And I want to make it the contact list service, right? So if I go contact list service, that's what it's going to be called, okay? All right. Now here's something that I did that's wrong, right? Contact list service, right? And this is okay. What happens, we haven't talked about this. What happens if we have something we just want to get rid of? Is it going to be a problem? Did it add this in somewhere? Luckily with services, it doesn't add them into the app module.ts file. So here, app module.ts has all the components listed, but none of the services. So it didn't add anything in here. So even if it did, you can just remove things from in here manually. There is no remove, unfortunately. It's not an auto removal. You can't just like ng remove service, blah, 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 and it takes care of it. No, I haven't seen that yet. So that's one thing. But here, what I could do is if I don't like this, I can like literally just delete it. So I say, oh, I don't want this page. And so let's get rid of this one. And I don't like this one. So let's just get rid of this one too. So delete. But let's do that again. So ng generate service and put it inside of services and call it contact list, contact dash list, contact list service, right? And then when you do that, it generates the service. Here's the contact list service, and it says contact list service. Yeah, nice. The contact list service is injectable. An injectable service means that I can inject it inside the root of my folder or in any other component that I want. That's the high level way of thinking about it. What I want also is I want a contact model that I'm going to use here. And I can do that by creating a class. I'm going to put them inside the models folder. So again, I want to ng generate a new class like this. I don't know what the shortcut is for class, probably CL or something. Ng generate class, and I want to put it inside the models folder, and it's going to be called contacts. So the contact model. When it does that, what it actually does is it makes in the models folder, it creates a class that's empty like this. Pretty straightforward. Now we've seen this kind of class before. It's not a big deal. What we want to do inside the models class is inside the contact class, this model, if you will, is just talk about what's in it, like the properties. By the way, you can also make this instead of a class, you can use an interface in TypeScript, and it serves the same purpose. And it's a little bit lighter weight too. So I want the class to have an ID for my contact, which is of type string. I also want it to have a first name, which is of type string, and a last name, which is of type string, right? Also an age, which is of type number. Okay, so that's my model class. Notice I get this little green underscore here because my linter, I'm using TSLint. My linter is saying that it shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't put underscores. But if I look at the little bubble, the little light bulb that comes up, if I click onto it, it says I can just disable it for this particular one. And so it doesn't complain. I want underscore, I can have underscore. It's up to me, right? So there's my model class. My model class is done. That's how easy it is. There's nothing to do. Now I can go back into my service, my list, contact list service. And I want to be able to use my model class in my contact list service. And I want to create this because I know I'm going to have more occasion to use this over and over again. I don't want to keep saying first name, last name, age, and that kind of stuff over and over again. It's too much of a waste of time. And also, from a structure perspective, I want my classes to be more structured. So what I could do, if I want to make a user object, I can go into my contact list service class and say something like, well, I want to make a private user object, which is of type user, capital U, user, right? Now notice that I don't have access to it. I can't just do what I did before because my user is not shared globally. It's only shared globally if I attach it to the app module, which I'm not going to do. But what you could do is just import it locally like this. I could say import user from, and then you look at where the users are. You can see that I'm down in here. I want to go up one to this level, going to models. It's not users, actually the contact. I made a mistake. Let's try that again, actually. See if that's available. So let's say it's private contact. See if I want to make one contact, which is of type contact. Yeah, that actually worked. Haha. So if I had a user class, which I don't have, I can do it that way. However, I have a model, I have a contact class that I do want to use, and I know that I'm going to make, I'm going to have a bunch of objects that use the contact class. For now, what I want to do is I just want to import it. I'm going to say import contacts from / models / contact. When I do this, now my contact class is available inside of my object, my service. We also want to a private endpoint. My endpoint is going to be the following. It's going to be http:// API / contact -list. And of course, I forgot the localhost. Localhost 3000, right? That's where it's going to go. And that is my API. I can use single quotes. It's asking me to do single quotes here. It doesn't like this double quotes because of standards, and I'm good to go. So that's my endpoint. So why would I do this? Because this way, if I change this, anywhere I say endpoint is also changed. So I don't have to go hunt through each one of my little methods I'm going to make and change all the endpoints manually, right? I just put it up here. And there's other ways to do this as well. The other thing I want to do is I want to create HTTP options, because we're going to have to access the API, something like HTTP options created. And what this does is it creates a headers object, which is a new HTTP headers. Now, notice that I can't access HTTP headers because HTTP headers belongs to the HTTP client, right? So I have to also include that. So let's just put a pause on this for a second. We'll just kind of comment that out. And I'm going to go into my constructor. I know that in my constructor, I want to have included the HTTP client module. So here, I'm going to do something like private HTTP, which is of type HTTP client. But if I did this, look what it says. It says auto import from Selenium WebDriver. Is that what I want? No, that's wrong. So I could look around if I could to figure this out, right? So this HTTP client is what I want. I could do this, but that's not really what I want to do. So if I did this, then I need to kind of manually include it on my own. So let's just do it manually. Sometimes it messes up is what I'm saying. So I want to do this, HTTP clients, as well as HTTP headers. I want to get those from the @Angular /common/HTTP. That's the location. Now, this is okay. And so it's going to be this one. New headers, right? And in my new headers file, I'm going to include the following headers. I want a header for the content type. So first one is content-type. My content type is going to be application/JSON. I also want to include a content type for the access control type of allow origin. And access control allow headers. This is all part of my headers, right? I'm going to include all these things so it makes it easier for me to access the back end. So remember headers, I need to tell that my browser that this is the type of data that I want from my API. Saying the type of data that I want. Okay. In a future video or lesson, we're also going to add other things to this header. For example, the authorization component, so that we can actually use something called bearer tokens. We're not going to do that right now. Okay, so we've got this, and what I want to do is I want to create a new method in my class called getList. Right? So I want to do something like this. I want to say public. It's going to be a public method. I'm going to call getList. This is going to get the contact list. And the getList is going to return an observable. Now, once I return an observable, it adds in the observable from Rxjs. Rxjs is reactive JavaScript. I'm just going to put this over here, move it over here, Rxjs. I also, a lot of times, want to include other things, but this is a good start. So it's returning an observable of type any. And what I want to do here is I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say that return this.http. I'm going to use a get request any, because remember that's the kind of request we're going to make of type any. And I'm going to pass in this.endpoint and this.http options. Okay, that's my getList function. It's pretty simple. Now, it's kind of weird syntax. People are like, what the heck is an observable? We talked about this. An observable is literally using the observer pattern. And what we're going to do is we're going to subscribe to this observable. And when we subscribe to it, anytime anything changes, then the subscriber is going to be notified. That's what's happening. Okay. And what we're doing is we're using a get request. We're passing in the endpoint. We're going here. And then we're passing in the way the headers are supposed to look with our request. And then this here is going to return the data that comes from the contact list. So that's why we need this service. The service is the thing that connects us to the API. Cool. Now, we did include HTTP and HTTP headers in the module. And because when we do a service like this, there's a couple things we need to do. We need to modify our app module. All right. Our app module doesn't know about services. Right now, all it has is these modules. So these are modules. It also has, that routing module is a module too. It also has these components. And I'm going to include additional services. So I'm going to make a couple of them right now we're going to include because I want to prepare for what we're going to do soon. So this is where it's going to be a little different. So the service that I want to add in, remember we added in that Flash, the Flash service, remember that? I want to add that in. I also want to add in the HTTP module and the Forms module. The Forms modules actually got a lot of useful applications that we can make. We can't do it right now, but we're going to make use of it later. So we're going to say imports. And again, there's some quick ways of doing this, by the way. Sorry, I should probably show you the quicker way. I want to add in the a module. I can do it down here, remember? Where inside of the components are done here, but the imports for modules are done here. So if it knows what I want, I could say something like HTTP client module, right? And then it says it's going to import something properly for me. Let's see what it did. Pretty good. HTTP client module from Angular common HTTP. That's actually found the right one. I want that one. And then I also want the Forms module. So I'm going to go to here and go Forms module. And sometimes it just won't find it. Like this. This is a good example of, I don't know what this is, right? So if it doesn't find it, that's okay. We can just go up to the top here and go import Forms module. And then where is it from? From, I believe that is from Angular Forms. Yes. Angular / Forms. Angular/forms. I'll be okay. Wow, getting tired. Forms module. And what we want to inject it in here. So we'll say forms module is in here. That's the forms module. And then, of course, we've got that one. We're going to add other ones as well. But for now, those are the two. We also want to add in a new service. So the service happens underneath components. We're going to make a new area for services. It doesn't have to be this way. I like organizing myself just like this, just so it's clear, not because I have to do it. I like doing it this way. And inside here, I'm going to import a new service called Flash Messages Module and Flash Messages Service, right? These two things from, remember we included this Angular 2 Flash messages? That's what I'm going to use now. That Flash area where I'm going to include the Flash messages inside of there. Once I've included the, okay. Now because it's also a service are included in the providers section, right? Which we don't have yet. So we're going to say that we're going to inject a service in the providers, a service provider. I don't know if you just got that. Flash message service. We're going to, oops, Flash message service. There we go. Wow. I'm really getting tired. And that basically allows us to use the Flash message service, which is that little bar that's going to come up on the top of our form. Okay, so that's really it in a nutshell. We had to include the HTTP client module because if we didn't, it wouldn't work. It's almost like a whole other grouping of components that we don't have right now. Even if we include the module in the service itself, it needs to be included globally in order for us to be able to use it. Okay, so that is pretty much the setup for the service. The service is here. We've done this, the observable, and everything else. This service is ready to go. One thing I'd like to do is, because we include the Flash messaging service, I want to use it inside of my app component.html, right? So I'm going to go back to my app component.html and modify it a little bit, make it a little nicer. So I'm going to go into there. And going to go, I want to inject my Flash service. So it looks like this, Flash messages. Okay, so this is where so this is the order of where everything is going to be injected. Okay, great. Now that I have this, I need a page to show my service. I'm not going to include my service in my contact page. I want a contact list page, right? So I'm going to set up another folder called contacts, let's see. And I want to put in the contact list, right? So again, in here, clear, ready? ng, generate a component called contacts / contact - list. Enter. So it creates a contacts folder. Inside there, there's a contact list component, and I have my contact list component right here. My contact list component .ts is going to inject the service that I asked for, and I'm going to do that in a couple of ways. First things first, though, let's take a look at this. I'm going to be inside of my constructor function. This is the best, easiest way to inject a service in my constructor function, right? Because my constructor function, remember, it does all that coding for me, makes my life a little easier. So I'm going to go and say that I want to make a private contact list service, which is of type contact list service, which is this one. When I do that, it injects the list service, right? Which is good. I also want to include a couple of other things. I want to include my private flash message, which is going to be of type flash message service. And then I want to include a private router, which is going to be of type router. Okay. So those are the things that I want to inject. Those are all the dependencies that I have for this component, right? I need my contact list service. I need my flash messages. I need my router to be able to move things around. Okay. Nice. All right. I also need a contacts array that I'm going to create at the top of my class. It's going to look like this. Well, if I need a contacts array, I need to include my contact, right? Because it won't come up. Remember, if I do something like this, contacts is an array of contacts, right? See how that comes up? And if I do one of these, it doesn't really come up unless I do one of those. Contact, array of contact. I'm trying to make it so it does it for me, man. That's what I want. I don't want to type a single thing, right? I want it to type it for me. It's perfect all the time, right? It's way better for me than if I type it, because I can make errors. I'm a human, right? I'm going to make problems, So this is good. So I got a contact. My contacts is an array of contacts. That's what this thing is. What else do I need to do? Well, what I want to do is in my ng on init, this is where all my initialization takes place. I want to do the following. I want to create my contacts is equal to a new array of type contact. You can do that too, right? It's just like Java, actually. Very close to Java. It's almost the exact same syntax. All right, cool. So there's my contacts. It's an option. And what I want to do now is I want to display contact list. Now, one thing that Visual Studio Code does is if you try to access something that doesn't exist, like display contact list, and it kind of hover over this, and if you click on this little button here, you can actually declare the method. Like, here it is. It'll do the signature for you. Like, here it is. Declare contact list, right? Display contact list. And this display, even if it's spelled wrong, let's spell it right. So I'm going to rename my symbol to display contact list. There we go. And it's going to return void, not any. And I don't want to throw an error because that's a stub. I want to do the following. I want to say that this dot contact list service. I'm using the service now, right? Dot get list. I want to get list, and I want to subscribe to the list. My subscription is going to pass in some data. And my data, okay, I'll see if you guys can remember, has some properties. One of them is success. Remember all those messages we sent off? Success true, success false? Well, what about if my data.success is true, then I want to say that this dot contacts is equal to data dot what? Remember? Contact list. What the data has built into it. That's from our API. And then else, if it's not successful, if it's false, right, then I'm going to say that this dot flash message dot show. You can use the show property where I can show an error. So for example, probably it's false because the user can't log in, right? User must be logged in, right? And I can also add a little bit of CSS. You have to use CSS class because otherwise it thinks it's a class, right? So CSS class of alert-danger, and then we're going to give it a timeout of 3,000 milliseconds. So what is this? This is a Flash message that comes from the Flash message service that I got from NPM. NPM, remember, I installed Angular 2 Flash messages. That's what I did. This is where I'm using a module that comes from somewhere else. Somebody else made this thing. And then I'm passing in some of the stuff that it needs. The show method of this particular module needs some text and some kind of options. And the text is string and options is an object. That's what it is. Okay, so that's the display contact list. And it's going to happen ng on init. That's what's happening. On init, it's going to display the contact list. Okay, but we have no place to display this thing right now. First of all, let's see if this even works. We don't care about displaying it. My contact list, I want to just display it, and I want to do it in some kind of console log. So let's do that. So we'll say that, on success, we'll do a console.log data, and we'll pump up the data to the console. Let's see if that works. So save. And in my HTML, let's just get rid of that for now. So no HTML, so it doesn't do anything. But what I want to do is I want to do contact list. I want to go there. So I want to go to my page, which is this one. And I want to go there manually because I don't have a link for that right now. So I'm going to go to contact list. Is that where it is? No. Did I make a root? Did I make a root? The answer is no. No root, no connection. So that's the next step. Let's do a root. So again, I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go into my app routing module. Remember, we have this root. It doesn't know the root. It's not going to do anything for me, right? So I'm going to just copy this. And underneath contact, I want to be able to have a contact list. I can name this whatever I want. So I'm going to say, instead of contacts, I want to make it contact. I could do contacts. It's up to you. I'm just going to call it contact lists. That's the root, right? My component is going to be the contact list component. Yeah, which gets included in here. Okay, my title is contact list. Okay, we have a route. Save. That's all it took. So route's there. Now we can see the page, maybe. Let's see. So we'll go back to this contact list. Okay, I got nothing, but I didn't render anything. What did I get on my console? I got an object. And the object has a bunch of stuff. It has this, so it worked. Take a look. Got a couple of Clark Kents too. Don't know why. One's 40 and the other one's 36. But notice what happened. We good? Contact list. We were able to read from my database. That's what this was. That's what this did, right? So we got the data, and now we have to display it. Well, we have that. Remember? We did that in my server views folder. We have something to display this. Okay, so now let's go back to my contact list component, which we're going to inject here. So we're going to go down to my server. We're going to grab in my views folder, I have a contacts folder. In my index folder, I have all this stuff we did last time. I'm going to grab all this, copy it. And I'm going to go back up to the contact list component HTML where it's empty and paste it. Here, we got issues. First of all, let's just make this the contact list. Contact list, right? That's the first thing I want. hrefs are bad. Let's get rid of them and make them router links. So we're looking for href, and we're going to change those to router link, replace. 3 results. Yay. Okay, cool. That's the next part. Okay, this got to go. This is all what should we call it? EJS. EJS has to disappear. And there's some EJS here and here we have to modify. Okay, this is a test for you guys now. So how do you think this should look? We need some kind of repeatable area, and Angular has such a thing. Okay, that's the first thing. So if I go to the page, in my repeatable area, I'm going to use a directive. Angular has really cool directives. We haven't even scratched the surface of all the stuff that they can do, really. So it's called ng4. You start with a star. Star, there's, if you notice, it has ng4, ngIf, ng-switch, right? And a bunch of other ones. I'm going to use ng4. It's like a for loop. Actually, more like a for each loop. For, I can say that let contact of contacts. That's how you do it. It's like a let of, or it's like a for each loop. I think it's the best way of looking at it. Cool. So for every contact in contacts, it's going to loop through and keep generating rows, right? If this is wrong though, it's going to look like a lot different than this. Let's do one, and then we'll copy paste the others. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of all this, and we have to use double curly braces. And in my double curly braces, I'm going to go contact dot. Notice it gives me the options. It gives me all this information. First name. And now that I have the format, I'm just going to take this whole thing. I'm going to cut it or copy it and paste it a couple of times. I'll even paste it in here too, because this is something that we need to do. So like this is contact ID. Okay. First name ID, contact ID. I'll do the same thing over here. This is wrong though. The pathing is wrong for these, but this is good. This is just last name, and this is age. Age. Okay. And I just want to check the pathing for these other ones because they're very close to being right. It is actually edit slash. We don't need the first part because we're already inside the contact list, and we don't have edit or delete. We don't have those kind of pages yet. Okay. So far, so good. Does it work? That's the trick. Does all this work? Can it work? Let's see. So going to go back here, and there it is. So it reads everything, and we have two Clark Kents. I don't have a way of deleting this, but I can use Postman for that, right? Remember? So how do I use Postman, right? I know what it's going to look like. I can do a GET request. So I can go do something like, I want to get the GET request. I'm going to go to my GET, and I'm going to go into my API and just look at a GET request for the contact list. The first one, that's 40. The one that's 36, we're going to leave him there. We like that Clark Kent. But the other one, he's an imposter, right? So we're going to get rid of him. So now we're going to do a GET request, right? But the GET request is going to be a delete. And it's going to look like this. Contact list slash delete slash, and then the name or the ID of the thing I want to delete. And if I click send, that contact list, that Clark Kent, that's 40, he's dead. So it says, oh, this is interesting. It says deleted contact. That was weird. Look, I got the message. Successfully deleted contact, right? This is the contact that I deleted. Clark Kent is 40. That's what I got back. I know I can probably change the backend so that this is what messaging does for us. It gives me confirmation that things are good. So I'm going to go back just because it did that. And if I wanted to look at it, you can see that Clark Kent's still here. If I refresh, Clark Kent's gone. Deleted. So I actually perform the delete. The delete works. I just have to program it right to work, right? So what I want to do is I want to go back to my server just really briefly. So I want to get rid of that weird thing. I don't like the message. That's so minor, you're going to say, but it bothers me. Delete page. which is down here where I have two E's. All right, so that's that. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I've got this, but it's not really complete. There's no way for me to get here right now. I have to type it in on the top here. I don't like that. Let's modify the contact page. When I click on here, I go to the contact list, and then we'll stop for the day. So I'm going to go to my contact page. So pages. Way up here. Contact. This is all bothering me too. This red stuff is killing me. But it's all errors. Like it's going to go away as soon as we come forward and back. You're going to see that even as all these pages are going to be the same. You're going to go back here and it's going to disappear, and then the errors are going to go away. Same thing with this one. Look, it just didn't pick up that there's no problem, right? Like it's literally just you have to go there, and wherever these things are, then the component just goes away because we built it so many times now that the routing is there. It's just that Visual Studio Code hasn't updated itself to know that everything is okay unless we physically go into that page. There you go. No more errors. It bothered me. It drove me crazy. But anyways, so under the contact page, I want to go into the contact/HTML. I have this app base page, and I want to add a little bit of HTML so I can get to the next page. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that I want to have a div with a class of container. Inside that class of container, I want a div with a class of row. And inside there, I want a div with a class of column, and then column dash medium dash 6. Inside there, I'm going to have a div of class of card. Inside the card class, I'm going to have an h5 tag with a class of card dash header, and then alert dash success. So a green card header. And I want to have the name in there be secure. How you do properties. And then next to that, I want to have a div tag with a class of card dash body, right? And inside of that, I want to have an anchor tag with a class of button, button dash primary. And inside that, I want to have an I tag with a class, I don't know, let's try this out, of FAS, FA dash users, and FA large, right? And that's going to be called contact list. Okay. And let's see if it works. Sorry. Is that better for you? I did a good, come on, I did good, right? Router link. Router link is nothing right now for the card body, doesn't go anywhere. But I'm going to make it so that it goes to the contact dash list. That's where it's going to go, contact list, right? And let's make sure it's all correct. So card, inside the card's an H5, H5 success is going to say secure. And then it's going to go here to the card body. Card body is going to have a anchor tag inside. Sorry, I'm just going to separate these. And in the anchor tag, you're going to have a router link with a button, and I need a space here. And I think that's good enough. Let's see how that looks. So going back, I have this. Oh man, what the heck is this? Contact list. Something went wrong. Whenever I see something like that, I'm like, well, that's not cool. Oh, I know why. This is supposed to be in here. it in the wrong spot. Right. Contact list. And if I click onto it, then we're good. We're going to stop there today. So again, I mean, we can keep going. You can see that, well, all those things we've done. We've done the first bit of CRUD operations. If I had another hour, I could do the rest of CRUD. If I had another hour after that, I might be able to start authentication. And the third hour after that, I would be able to do some refactoring and some other. We got a whole other day of work to do here.
Like before you do that, do this content, then you modify the controller.
No.
Like
What you mean?
I have 13
you mean this? Oh, don't worry about that. I didn't modify this. No, right? All I did was like literally just went in here and changed this so that way I can have a little link. That's all I did. But I made it so it looks like a card. It's not that beautiful. It's not that ugly. So yeah, so to leave you with some thoughts, remember what we're trying to do. If I go back to this, you can see that these don't work. They all go to 404s, right? No matter what I click here, they go to 404s because we haven't programmed that in. We need a link for this, a route, and another route. 3 more routes, right? We have no router, no moving. The other thing is that notice that this lights up, this lights up, this lights up, but when I click this, there's nothing lit. So we can always do something there. Also, log out and log in doesn't work. We have a whole authentication service, an auth service to add in, a brand new auth service that connects to our authentication endpoints, and all that JWT stuff that we've been preparing. We have to add that in. Plus, I also want to add in a validation service. And if you remember what I did before, and again, this is our final product that we want. Let's take a look at that. So if I look at the final product, which looks like this, right? Our final product should look something like this. I still got a bit of a bug in it. I saw it today. But it should look like something like this, where if I go to the contact page, it looks like this. I have some kind of paging. Remember I talked about this, where I can sit there and say, well, I want 10 items per page only, or I want a lot of work to do. But remember that I'm not even scratching the surface of what Angular Forms can do. A lot of the two-way data binding stuff that I'd like it to do, all that stuff is not even activated right now. Okay? So there's a lot of work that has to be still done, but we're going to you guys your project, your final project that's due. It's going to be a group project, right? You have a chance to do either Angular or React or some other front end that you asked me about. If you say, I want to do Vue.js, okay. You want to do React.js, okay. You want to do Angular, okay. I want to do EJS, no, can't do EJS. You have to do one of the other ones. Okay? Questions around today and what we did. Lots of work, and I'm going to put the rest up on GitHub. I want you guys to, focus on the key learnings today, right? Which, for the 3 things that we did, we converted our Express server into an Express API. We added Angular to our Express application, right, in a special spot, right? And we configured the basic pages. And the third thing is we created a service not a component, that injects into our component that connects to our HTTP module, which is built into Angular, and consumes the API from Express that we can show on the screen that we're going to get back. Okay? That's all the things we did today. It sounds like it's a little, but actually it's a lot. Okay, that's it for me, guys. There's nothing for you guys to do for today. I just want you to practice, if you can, the Tour of Heroes and more Angular stuff. So when we get back next week, you have better questions and you're more comfortable with it, okay? Remember, there will be something with Angular coming forward. So don't ignore it, please. And that's it for me.